What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'm doing a silly season update where I'm going to go through everything that's happened in silly season up to this point from the beginning of the season up to now. So anyways, let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. Silly season will kick off in the second week of January when Kevin Harvick would officially announce that he'd be retiring at the end of the 2023 season. Then a month later, he would confirm that he'd be joining the Fox Sports booth starting in 2024. After an illustrious and fantastic career, winning 60 NASCAR Cup Series races up to this point, Kevin Harvick will retire and go on to do great things and will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. A couple days later, it will be announced that Kyle Larson will be running the 2024 and 2025 Indianapolis 500s, driving for Aaron McLaren. He will have Hendrick's support with the team in 2024 and 2025, and also he'll be driving the number 17. And it was announced on Sunday his paint scheme that he's going to run not only for the Indy 500 but for the Coco 600. Looks awesome and amazing, and I think Kyle Larson has a great chance to win the 2024 and 2025 Indianapolis 500s. Silly season will be quiet for a few weeks, and then in late January, during the Phoenix Next Gen test, Casey Mears spoke to the media. He says he wants to return to NASCAR. The reason he wants to return to NASCAR is he wants to reach 500 Cup starts. I believe Casey Mears needs 11 or 12 more Cup Series starts to reach 500. Obviously, Legacy Motor Club could be available, but there's a chance that Casey Mears may return to NASCAR. Then a couple days later, it will be announced that Chase Briscoe has signed a multi-year contract extension with Stewart-Haas Racing. Well, nothing's official how long the extension is. A lot of people believe it is a long-term extension. Since Chase Briscoe has driven for Stewart-Haas Racing for many, many years, he will continue driving for them for many years to come and continue driving the 14 car. Then during the Rolex 24 at Daytona, Romain Grosjean spoke to the media, and he says he's interested in racing in NASCAR and says he would like to try out the Daytona 500 one day. Romain Grosjean's future in IndyCar is currently uncertain at the moment. I think he'd have a pretty good chance to make the Daytona 500. It'd be cool to see him race in NASCAR. Silly season will be quiet for about a week, and then during Daytona media days, multiple drivers would be signed. First, Daniel Suarez had announced that he had signed a multi-year contract extension with Trackhouse Racing. While the details were not exactly shown, it's expected he has a contract right now through 2025 and 2026. He has a chance to make the playoffs this year in 2023, but it will be with the team for many years to come. On the same day, it was announced Alex Bowman also signed a contract extension with Hendrick Motorsports through 2026. In addition to that, Ally has also signed a contract extension with Hendrick through 2028. So it's very likely at this point that Alex Bowman will be staying with Hendrick Motorsports through at least 2028. While his contract goes through 2026, he'll probably get extended through 2028. Then on the next day, it would be announced that Ross Chastain had signed a long-term contract extension with Trackhouse Racing. While the details were not official and close how long the deal is, it is expected that Ross Chastain will be at Trackhouse Racing probably for the rest of his career. And it's also been confirmed that Busch Beer is going to be the sponsor for at least the next few years. It's exciting stuff as Ross Chastain will be sticking around with Trackhouse Racing. Silly season then will be quiet for a few weeks, and then after Daytona 500, the second week of the season, Steve Valletto went on Sirius and NASCAR radio, and he says that 2311 Racing is planning long-term expansion. They've obviously got a shop where they're currently working on at the moment, and they want to be a very successful organization in NASCAR going long-term, and do want to eventually have 3 full-time cars. Well, that's not likely in the cards for 2024. It looks like in the future, 2311 is going to expand. Then once again, silly season be quiet for a very, very long time. Then Mark Rushbrook, who the executive for Ford, spoke about Hailie Deegan on Sirius and NASCAR radio. And they say that Ford is committed to Hailie Deegan for 2024. And very recently, Hailie Deegan went on the Rubbings Racing podcast with Dan DiOrio, and she says she wants to move up to the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2024, but she wants to have funding and sponsorship for that. She revealed it's about $2 to $3 million to run in the Truck Series. Meanwhile, for the Xfinity Series, it's $4 to $6 million. But I think Ford will work with her. I think there's a couple chance teams that she could work with, and it sounds like she may be moving up to the Xfinity Series, maybe as early as 2024, but that is a potential possibility. Then a couple weeks later, Dale Jr. was on the Dale Jr. Down speaking about Junior Motorsports potentially jumping up to the Cup Series. And Dale Jr. said that Junior Motorsports is still trying to go Cup racing. However, it sounds like it's not likely going to be happening in 2024, especially Spire Motorsports confirming that they are not going to be selling any of their charters. That does seem a lot of people thought would sell their charter to give it to Junior Motorsports. I think Dale Jr. knows it's with the charter money. Of course, right now they're saying it's $30 million for charters, and it might get up to $40 million in the near future. But still, I think Junior Motorsports is a team long-term that will jump up the cup, but it sounds like right now they will not move up in 2024. On that same podcast, Chip Ganassi was on there, and he says that Chip Ganassi Racing is not rolling out a return to NASCAR. Chip Ganassi is not going to be in the NASCAR Cup Series, selling off their Cup Series team to Trackhouse Racing at the end of 2021. I think Chip Ganassi Racing could come back in the not-so-distant future. I think it's going to be in 2025 at the earliest, but they are not ruling it out. It'd be cool to see them come back to NASCAR. Then throughout the 2023 season, we have discussed a lot about Kurt Busch. The reason being is because Kurt Busch has indicated that he is getting closer to potentially returning to NASCAR. He says that there is a third car currently at 2311 Racing, and shall he be able to return and is medically cleared by doctors to return, he will be able to get into a third 2311 Racing car. He has at points also indicated in the past that he would like to potentially run full-time once again. While it's not very likely at this point, I think Kurt Busch coming back to NASCAR would definitely be very, very awesome. I really hope it ends up happening, but it sounds like there's a good chance it could happen. Maybe in the foreseeable future that Kurt Busch makes an official return. Then throughout the season as well, a couple times, Scott McLaughlin has spoken on social media that he's interested in racing NASCAR. First back in March in a Q&A session, and then after the Chicago Street Course race where he saw his good friend Shane Van Gisbergen win, he has shown indication there. There was a lot of talk back in 2018 or 2019 that he was going to drive for Team Penske's NASCAR Xfinity Series program, but it'd definitely be interesting to see him potentially come to NASCAR in the foreseeable future. Then Jenson Button, after a very successful NASCAR Cup Series race at Circuit Americas, finished in 18th. He said he had a lot of fun racing, that he's interested in running full-time in NASCAR. Now in 2024, he plans to run in the World Endurance Championship and IMSA a lot more as well. He's made a couple starts in the Cup Series. He has complained a little bit about the racing, but still, Jenson Button might join NASCAR in the foreseeable future on a full-time basis. Then in early May, in shocking fashion, it will be announced that Legacy Motor Club will be switching to Toyota in 2024. Eric Jones is one of the confirmed drivers who will be behind the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club in 2024. And it was also announced that Jimmy Johnson will make select starts with Legacy Motor Club in the 2024 season as well. And Toyota will have 8 full-time cars in the 2024 season, which would be really big for Toyota and their growth. Then during the Miami Grand Prix weekend, Lewis Hamilton spoke to the media. He says he would like to try to race in NASCAR one day. Lewis Hamilton has had a little bit of experience racing in NASCAR in the past, as he basically drove in a role of driving the 14th Mobil 1 car when Tony Stewart drove his Formula 1 car when he drove for McLaren back in 2011 in a swap role. So Lewis Hamilton could join NASCAR in the foreseeable future. Then throughout the whole entire season, we've talked about another driver, and that is Carl Edwards. The reason being is that Carl Edwards is not ruling out a return to NASCAR. Very recently, he said that he's been interested in maybe doing a one-off race during the national weekend. And what's interesting to note is that Denny Hamlin has asked Carl Edwards in the past, and when he opened up 2311 Racing, he had asked Carl Edwards about potentially driving for their organization. Obviously, Bubba Wallace currently drives full-time along with Tyler Reddick as well, and I think Kurt Busch did as well. But I believe that Carl Edwards in the future could make a return and do a one-off in the number 67 car that we've seen drivers like Kamui Kobayashi and Travis Strana and even Kurt Busch have an attempt to drive. But I think Carl Edwards could, in the near future, come back and race in NASCAR in a one-off, which I think would close out a lot of people who want him to come back. Then during the same Darlington throwback weekend, Kasey Kahne spoke to the media, of course being honored as one of NASCAR's greatest 75 drivers in history, and Kasey Kahne has said that he has considered a return to NASCAR. He said his health is a lot better than it was not too long ago, and he says he would like to return in the foreseeable future. Maybe runs in the Truck Series, maybe runs in the Cup Series or Xfinity, but he says he wants to return to NASCAR. Then during the Charlotte weekend for Memorial Day weekend, Roger Cruz spoke to the media and was speaking to Carson Hocevar, was doing media stuff at the time, Area Austin Center, and Roger Cruz says he's currently a free agent for 2024 and does not have a ride. Right, a lot of talk about GMS Racing potentially shutting down at the end of 2023 could lead to Raj Groove having a chance and opportunity to move up to the Xfinity Series or maybe staying in the Truck Series in 2024. There's certainly a possibility on that. Then a few days later, there was a race article that came out from Kelly Crandall talking with Trevor Bayne. And Trevor Bayne says he will race at some point in 2023, but almost thought he'd be racing full-time in 2023 because he thought he had a full-time deal in the Truck Series set up probably with Busch Motorsports or another Toyota Truck Series team. But because of the sponsor that he had falling out, that's a big reason why he'll not be full-time in Xfinity or any series this year. But Trevor Bayne will at some point race in 2023. Then there's been a lot of talk and conversations about Eric Almirola throughout this year because Eric Almirola has talked about potentially retiring at the end of the 2023 season. And Eric Almirola very recently went on Sirius and NASCAR Radio, and he says a decision expected in the next 2 months, and that decision at the latest will probably come in September. Eric Almirola came back after 2022. We all thought he retired at the end of 2022, but he made his return in 2023. I think there's a really good chance and possibly that Eric Almirola does retire at the end of 2023 and maybe hands it to another driver we'll talk about in just a little bit. In that same article from Jordan Bianchi, it was reported that Harrison Burton is likely going to be returning to the Wood Brothers in 2024. There have been a lot of talk maybe take over the 10 car for Eric Almirola in 2024, but it sounds like due to Dex Imaging sponsorship funding, it sounds very likely at this point that Harrison Burton is going to return to the Wood Brothers. Then there's been a lot of talk about Denny Hamlin. It's been reported for multiple months that Denny Hamlin is close to signing an extension with Joe Gibbs Racing. And it was reported by Adam Stern 2 months ago that FedEx is also close to signing an extension. But Denny Hamlin has not officially signed that contract at this moment. There's a couple big reasons. The TV deal and also 2311 Racing as well, especially with Legacy Motor Club switching to Toyota next year. That is kind of holding up the deal from getting finalized at this point. It sounds like they do want to have a deal finalized for the foreseeable future, but I do believe Denny Hamlin will be returning to Joe Gibbs Racing at least for the next few years. Then, Gray Biffle was speaking during the Sonoma weekend. He says that he's interested in returning to NASCAR. He says he'd come back to NASCAR if Portland potentially got on the Cup Series schedule. And Gray Biffle does say that Portland could host a Cup Series race and does have the infrastructure to host one as well. I don't blame Gray Biffle wanting that to happen, but it would be really cool to see Gray Biffle come back. He's made select starts in the Cup Series in the last 2 years. I think he could come back in the foreseeable future. Then a couple weeks later after this, it was officially announced that Joe Gibbs Racing has sold a minority stake to Harris HBSC, which is the Harris Blitzer group that currently is taking over the Washington Commanders. The big thing, is that the team name is not changing. It's just going to be an investment group bringing in more sponsorship and more funding, which could help with the Denny Hamlin contract situation. And I believe that Heather Gibbs is working really hard with Joe Gibbs Racing and is becoming higher up at this team at this point. This is a really big deal. More money, more sponsorship and funding for Joe Gibbs Racing long term. Then in late June or early July, it would be officially announced that Josh Berry would be officially taking over for Kevin Harvick in 2024 and will join Stewart-Haas Racing in 2024, driving the number 4 car. And Rodney Childers is going to be the crew chief on that said car. Josh Berry's had a great year in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and has made some select starts in the Cup Series. He's actually made a lot of Cup starts, as a matter of fact, in 2023. A lot of people are expecting that Josh Berry's not going to do as good as what Kevin Harvick's been able to accomplish, but a lot of people do believe that Josh Berry will probably have a pretty good year in the Cup Series and maybe still the best SHR driver. Then during that same conversation, Tony Stewart was speaking to media, and he says Stewart-Haas Racing is likely staying with Ford in 2024. And it's not expected that they're going to be switching manufacturers in the 2024 season. At this point, I think SHR sticks around with Ford at least through 2024, but there's a chance it could switch manufacturers in 2025, as rumors have circulated. Then in a Front Stretch article, Quinn Houff was speaking to a couple people from Front Stretch, and he says he's not interested in returning to NASCAR. Quinn Houff has not raced in NASCAR since the 2021 season when he drove the 00 car for Starcom Racing. Quinn Houff did struggle there. He seems to be having a good time. He said the only way he'd come back is basically if he had competitive equipment, which there aren't a lot of competitive vehicles that are available at this moment right now, so he's likely not coming back. Then over the last month or two, there's been a lot of conversation about Andretti Autosport. And according to reports, Andretti Autosport is interested in joining NASCAR. A lot of people do believe they could partner up with Spire Motorsports because of the Gainbridge partnership. Is Gainbridge signed a multi-year partnership with Spire Motorsports, which the co-owner of Gainbridge is also co-owner of the Andretti Autosport group now. This could be a big way for them to get in, and there's a good chance they'll be getting into NASCAR in the foreseeable future. Then Frankie Muniz is speaking to media multiple times, and he says he's planning to move up to Xfinity Series or Truck Series in 2024. It's unclear what ride he could be driving in 2024, but it would be really cool to see Frankie Muniz having a really good year in ARCA. It'd be really cool to see him jump up to the NASCAR Xfinity or Truck Series. Then during the Mid-Ohio weekend in early July, during the Atlanta weekend for Cup as well, Mark Andretti was speaking to media on the Friday, and he says he's interested in running full-time in NASCAR in 2024. Mark Andretti's been having a lot more fun in stock cars, and he's had some pretty good success in stock cars as well, especially when you look at the SRX. I think he would have a pretty good year if he did run in the Truck Series. Then, during the Pocono weekend, there's been a lot of talk about Jeffrey Earnhardt, and Jeffrey Earnhardt is being considered for the 8 car for 2024. Jeffrey, of course, the nephew of Dale Earnhardt Jr., he's been having a little bit of a struggle year with Alpha Prime Racing, but a lot of people do feel like that if he got a great opportunity and a great car to work with, he would do a much better job. So he could be a potential candidate. Also, Carson Osbar has been looked at, but Jeffrey might be driving for Junior Motorsports. Then Kyle Busch actually spoke to the media at New Hampshire, and he says he wasn't sure if he would actually be racing in 2023. Remember, during the contract situation with Kyle Busch basically told Jim France and said that he wasn't even sure if he was going to be racing at all in 2023, but it's really good at least he came back. He's driving for RCR, and you look at the success he's had at RCR. He's been having a great year this year, and he will continue at least staying for many, many years, but he almost did not race in 2023. Then it was basically announced about a month or two ago that William Swage would be expanding his racing schedule for 2024. He will race in the Xfinity Series and Truck Series both part-time in 2024, and when he does officially turn 18 years old, he'll be racing the Xfinity Series on a full-time basis starting in 2025 with Joe Gibbs Racing. He's had a lot of success already as a young driver, and I expect him to become a much better driver over time and continue improving as a race car driver. Then A.J. Allmendinger has spoken to the media, I think during like a couple weeks ago. He is still undecided for 2024. Some people in the industry believe he will be coming back. Others believe he may retire, go back to the Xfinity Series in 2024. He isn't having as much fun from what I understand, so there is a possibility that Allmendinger may not be back in the Cup Series in 2024, at least on a full-time basis. That's something to keep an eye on. Then Ryan Preece is speaking to Matt Weaver a few weeks ago, and he says that he is expected to return to Stewart-Haas Racing in 2024. While he has struggled this year in the 2023 season, he deserves another chance and opportunity. He's also got sponsorship funding that's definitely going to help him, and I think he will only continue and progress and get better in the Cup Series because it seems like SHR has shown a few signs of improvement. Then a couple days later, it was officially announced shockingly that Justin Haley had signed a multi-year contract extension with Rick Ware Racing, and they all have alliance with RFK Racing. When nothing's officially announced on one of the deals, it's probably going to be a 2 to 3 year deal. With Rick Ware Racing's growth, and how much they're getting better in the NASCAR Cup Series, it's no shocker and surprise that they're continuing to work with drivers to improve their organization. They've shown signs of improvement in the 2023 season, and they look to only get better and better in the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series season with Justin Haley. Because of this, there's been a lot of talk about Austin Hill, and Austin Hill is currently the lead candidate for the 31 car for Kaulig Racing. And after Austin Hill won at Pocono a few weeks ago, Chris Rice went up to congratulate him. Austin Hill does have sponsorship funding. That's a big reason why Justin Haley is now returning to Kaulig Racing in 2024. Austin Hill is a very talented driver, and there's a good chance he'll be driving the 31 car, but nothing has been officially announced, but there's a good chance he'll be driving for them in 2024. Then during that same Pocono weekend, Jesse Love was speaking to media after winning the ARCA race, and he says he's not sure what he'll be doing in 2024, but he's hoping to be racing the Xfinity Series and Truck Series. Jesse Love has a lot of talent, though he's been a little bit of a baby at times. There's a good chance he'll be moving up to those series in 2024. Then there's also been a lot of talk conversations on a Door Bumper Clear podcast that Carson Osbar might be headed to the Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2024, and it sounds like it might be taking over the 77 car for Spire Motorsports in 2024. Carson Osbar has been having a really good year in the Xfinity Series and the select starts he's had, and also as a championship threat in the Truck Series as well. I think he's got a really great opportunity, chance to win the Truck Series championship with Nice Motorsports, and might be jumping up to the Cup Series as well. Then during that same Door Bumper Clear podcast, Freddie Kraft, who is a spotter for Bubba Wallace, revealed that Bubba Wallace only has 1 year left on his contract with 23XI Racing. We all thought he had signed a multi-year deal, but I guess not a multi-year deal. I guess a 1 year extension with an option year. But I would expect that Bubba Wallace will probably get another extension with 23XI Racing in the near future. Then during the SRX media availabilities a few weeks ago, Helio Castroneves was revealed that he could run the 2024 Daytona 500 once again, and Don Hawk is working to help him. He was obviously supposed to run in 2023 in the Daytona 500, I should say, but unfortunately those deals fell through. When it was revealed the team is going to drive for the money team was a team that was not fast, and Helio wanted to be in a car that was going to be extremely competitive and wouldn't want to rely on having to worry about speed. And let's be honest, the money team had struggled, but Helio could be running the Daytona 500 in 2024. During that same SRX weekend at Motor Mile, Joseph Newgarden was interviewed by Matt Weaver from Sportsnet. And Joseph Newgarden does want to try out NASCAR. Joseph Newgarden has driven a stock car in the past back in 2017 or 2018 at the Charlotte Roval, and has had interest in the past all the way back to last year about maybe running in 2023. So there is a chance, a possibility that it could happen where he races in 2024. Then during the Road America weekend, after Sage Karam had a very impressive run, Sage Karam spoke to the media, and he says he's hoping to run in NASCAR full-time in 2024. Sage Karam does have a lot of talent. He was extremely impressive, and I think he could do an excellent and a very, very good job if he gets the opportunity to run full-time. Then about a week or two ago, we got a lot of new reports surrounding Legacy Motor Club in a new silly season update from Jordan Bianchi. And John Hunter Nemechek might be headed to the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club starting in 2024, with him replacing Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson has struggled in the NASCAR Cup Series this year with the team, but also Legacy has struggled as well. But John Hunter is a very talented driver, and Toyota does want to move him up, and Toyota does not want to associate with Noah Gragson currently at the moment, especially after a very controversial situation that ended up happening. So John Hunter could be headed to Legacy Motor Club. Then a couple days later, it would be announced that Corey LaJoie has officially signed a multi-year contract extension with Spire Motorsports. Corey had offered some other big teams to potentially drive for them in 2024, but Corey LaJoie wants to stay around long-term to help Spire Motorsports continue their growth as an organization, and I think overall it will be a much better decision for him because he looks to help improve the Spire Motorsports organization. Then on the Friday for the Michigan race last week, Ryan Nelson announced he will be driving full-time for Alpha Prime Racing in 2024 in the number 43 car. Now, he hasn't been driving a lot this year for Alpha Prime Racing, but wasn't running the full season. But now with the sponsorship funding from Keen Parts and other companies, he will be continuing driving for Alpha Prime Racing in 2024. Then on the Saturday of the Michigan weekend, it would be announced that Mark Truex Jr. would be officially returning to Joe Gibbs Racing in 2024. After a really great year in 2023, there have been a lot of conversations though he could retire at the end of 2023, but luckily we're not going to have to worry about that happening because Mark Truex Jr. is returning to JGR in 2024. Then it was also announced on that same day that Ryan Truex will also be returning to Joe Gibbs Racing in 2024, at least part-time in Xfinity, but Martin's hoping that Ryan can run full-time with the team in 2024. There's a lot of conversations that there could be some big team drivers going back to Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity in 2024, and we know for sure that Ryan Truex will be one of those drivers. Then during that same Michigan weekend, Brad Keselowski spoke to the media, and he says that RFK Racing does want to expand to 3 cars, but it will not happen in 2024 because of the charter system. A lot of teams are holding out on charter, especially with the TV agreement that's coming up currently at the moment. RFK right now is holding out on that, and they're not going to expand in 2024, so the earliest we may see them expand is 2025. Then during that same Michigan weekend, Kyle Busch officially revealed that he will once again run 5 Truck Series races in 2024. Well, he didn't officially announce which races he's going to run. We know that Kyle Busch every year wants to run 5 Truck Series races, so he'll be back in the Truck Series once again, at least for 5 races in 2024. In that same announcement, it would be announced that Chase Purdy and Nick Sanchez will be returning to their respective rides. Chase Purdy will be returning to the Ford truck for Kyle Busch Motorsports in 2024, and Nick Sanchez will be returning to Rev Racing in the number 2 truck in 2024. Chase Purdy, while he's kind of struggled in the Truck Series, the series had a career year, and Nick Sanchez has been very competitive this year in the Truck Series and has a really good chance to win the championship this year as he's currently competing for the playoffs. Both drivers have respectable years and will continue driving for their team. Then about a week ago, on last Wednesday, it will be announced that Furman Motorsports have finalized their 2024 driver lineup. And they basically would be keeping the same drivers they have for 2024. Michael McDowell will continue driving the 34 car, and Todd Gillen will drive the 38 car once again in 2024. Now, they did announce that they were trying to run a 3rd car full-time in 2024, but they didn't have the sponsorship funding, and they didn't want a rookie like Zane Smith to come in. So Zane Smith could be a free agent at the end of the year. We'll talk about Zane Smith here in a second, but it sounds like there's a chance that that could end up happening, where they at least will have 2 full-time entries, and the truck program is for sure coming back in 2024. Then last week on Thursday, Justin Marks went in Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, and he says he is not planning to field an Xfinity or Truck Series team anytime soon. Trackhouse Racing has been talked about this because of Shane Van Gisbergen, but we know for sure this is kind of not a surprise or shock. They're not the only team that's not talking about it. 2311 Racing as of now, they're not planning to expand the Xfinity or trucks anytime soon as well, and Trackhouse will at least for sure be focused on Cup as they try to expand. Then it was finally announced after the John Hunter rumors that Noah Gragson will not return to Legacy Motor Club. Now, it had been reported back on Tuesday earlier in the week when it was announced that Mike Rockefeller was going to drive. They thought that Noah Gragson was going to be out. Then Jim Hunter said that Legacy Motor Club had told him that he was not going to be out. But then it was officially finalized that Noah Gragson has asked himself that he would be out. It's obviously due to the controversy. He's been suspended. He's been indefinitely suspended. It's unclear what's going to happen with Noah Gragson's future past 2023. We're not sure he'll be back in the Cup at all. I don't think he'll be back in the Cup Series 2023. I think at best he'll be racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and probably the Truck Series in 2024. Then over the last week, on that same Thursday, it would be announced that Shane Van Gisbergen is finalizing a deal to drive for Trackhouse Racing in 2024 in a development deal. In addition to that, it was announced earlier today, or yesterday when you're watching this, that basically he is not going to be back at Supercars in 2024. Meaning that it's expected he will be joining NASCAR full-time in 2024, part-time with Trackhouse, I think part-time with Nice, and also part-time with College Racing as he looks to develop his skills in NASCAR and get better. He's already had a pretty solid start, made his oval debut at IRP, finished 19th, and has had 2 top 10s in the Cup Series already in his short career up to this point. He'll be racing NASCAR in 2024. Then during the IRP weekend, Jake Drew spoke to Mark Crystal from Front Stretch. And Jake Drew says he wants to race full-time in the Truck Series in 2024, but nothing is finalized. He doesn't have any more Truck Series races planned for 2023, but he's hoping to potentially run in the Truck Series in 2024, maybe with Vittori Racing, or maybe, just maybe, with Thor Sport Racing. Then after the NASCAR Cup Series race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course, Bro Gesicki spoke to Dustin Long from NBC, and he says he wants to race in NASCAR again. He did finish in 22nd in his debut, and he's hoping maybe he'll get another opportunity chance with the connection with RCR. I think there's a good chance that could potentially end up happening. Then at the same time, Kamui Kobayashi also spoke, and he says he wants to come back to NASCAR and make another start once again. Kamui Kobayashi did finish 33rd in his debut, but I think Kamui could actually do a lot better. He was pretty fast in the test sessions, more than a lot of people said, and I think he could actually improve and do a better job with more starts. Then on later that evening, Max Pappas went on social media, and he says, I'm tired of watching all these drivers compete. I want to race in NASCAR in 2024. The last time Max Pappas raced, to my knowledge, was in the 2013 season when he drove for NTS Motorsports in the 14 team and also got slapped by Mike Skeen's wife. Max Pappas is someone who probably will struggle a little bit, but he has raced a little bit recently. He's working with William Byron as well. It'd be cool to see Max Pappas back in the sport. And finally, over the last couple of days, Jerry Freese went on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, and he says that Zane Smith's future at Front Row is currently uncertain. Zane Smith says he's hoping to have a better ride for 2024. And a lot of people point to the 10 car for Stewart-Haas Racing because the 10 car for SHR right now is not set, and Eric Almirola could retire at the end of this season. So there's a good chance that Almirola potentially retires, and we see Zane Smith maybe get that right. Zane deserves to be full-time, and I think the 10 car is very likely a great possibility at this point. So that's everything we know with the silly season up to this point. Let's talk about one potential possibility, Matt DiBenedetto. Matt DiBenedetto, I think there's a chance he could be racing in Cup or maybe Xfinity in 2024, but I think he also could return to trucks in 2024. I think a lot of people look at him as an outside chance, maybe make some Cup starts this year, but there's a chance he also could not make any changes for 2024. So, that is the new NASCAR silly season update. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel, notifications on soon if I win a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links go below with that, and comment your thoughts below on today's video. What are your thoughts about a silly season update? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Later tonight on the channel, the SRX Series review from Lucas Oil, also known as Wheelan. Then tomorrow on the channel, we're basically going to have the race picks for the Cup Series race, which is on Friday, which is surprising, at Watkins Glen. And also maybe a NASCAR news video on the channel as well. We got some Motorsports games that has come out very, very recently. And then, of course, on Saturday and Sunday, we'll have other content previewing Watkins Glen. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.